Have you ever, perhaps without fully realizing it, noticed the strange and somewhat paradoxical phenomenon that the more you exert effort and push yourself toward a goal, the more everything seems to unravel and fall apart? It's as if the moment you desperately desire an outcome, meticulously control every single detail, or become consumed by anxiety over the result, success becomes not only elusive, but in many cases impossible to grasp. You might find yourself trying desperately to impress others, only to inadvertently appear insecure or uncertain. And the fear that accompanies the possibility of losing money compels you to make worse decisions than you otherwise would have. This creates a paradox that many people experience but few understand. The very instant at which you cease clutching on so tightly, the moment you stop obsessing over every last detail and relinquish control, things begin to fall effortlessly into place as if by magic. People arrive who can support you, solutions suddenly reveal themselves, money unexpectedly comes through, and opportunities you hadn't anticipated start to appear. Yet this is not because some mystical cosmic force suddenly answered your desperate pleas. It happens precisely because you stopped getting in your own way. Today, therefore, we are going to delve deeply into this puzzling dynamic, examining not only why it occurs, but also how it operates on both a psychological and neurological level, and why, contrary to popular belief, letting go is not a sign of weakness, but rather a misunderstood manifestation of true inner strength. The majority of people live their lives under the spell of a very powerful yet fundamentally flawed illusion that if they think harder, worry more, and exercise rigorous control over every development, the outcomes will somehow improve. In reality, what happens is precisely the opposite. Excessive tension and mental strain gradually constrict one's ability to think broadly and creatively, while fear of making mistakes effectively locks the mind into rigid patterns that obstruct flexibility. Meanwhile, an obsession with the desired outcome blinds you to the nuances of actual circumstances, warping your perception until you see only what you fear losing rather than what is really happening in front of you. Psychologists have given a name to this neuropsychological state: cognitive tunneling. In other words, when you are tense and on edge, your brain literally functions less intelligently, not in the pejorative sense, but due to very basic biological mechanisms. What exactly happens in the brain during moments of anxiety? When fear arises, the amygdala, an evolutionarily ancient part of the brain, sounds an alarm, signaling danger, loss, take control. At this moment, access to rational thought tightly diminishes, creativity plummets, your memory falters, and your decisions become simplistic and reactive. Consequently, you begin to cling to people, hold desperately to money, fear speaking your mind, and hesitate to take meaningful steps forward. The crucial and tragic part is that in such moments you start playing defense, trying to hold on to what you have instead of initiating creation or growth.
There is a deceptively simple formula here. Wherever there is rigid and unyielding control, there is invariably an underlying fear of loss. You only strive to control those aspects of your life or surroundings which you are afraid to lose. You do not cling to or attempt to control anything you do not perceive as integral to your value or sense of self-worth. Therefore, control itself is not a form of strength. It is better understood as a symptom, a manifestation of an internal dependence upon outcomes, approval from others, financial security, certain people, or a fixed identity. This is the paradox that disrupts many systems of growth and success, and is often referenced as the paradox of letting go. Yet, in truth, this is not a paradox at all. When you cease clutching, stop acting from a place of fear, your brain shifts back into a mode of clarity and openness. You begin to perceive a greater range of possibilities. You respond authentically to reality rather than to imagined fears or fantasies. You become less predictable, less easily controlled by others, less comfortable, and, by extension, far more powerful and intimidating in a positive sense. It is absolutely crucial to grasp, right from the outset, that letting go does not mean sitting idly and waiting for things to happen on their own. It is not synonymous with giving up or abdicating responsibility. Instead, letting go means releasing inner tension, the compulsion and dependency on a particular outcome, and disengaging from the anxiety and inner turmoil that accompany that compulsion. You continue to act and make decisions with intention and focus, but you no longer base your self-worth or emotional stability on the outcome. When you relinquish neediness, you reclaim the power to choose. An individual who clings out of need will invariably settle for less, tolerate harmful situations, rationalize unacceptable behavior, and fear articulating boundaries by saying no. Conversely, someone who has truly let go can make choices freely and confidently because they have nothing left to lose but illusions. This is the critical shift that many mistake for something akin to magic, but it is actually a profound return to inner autonomy.
Let us begin by addressing arguably the most sensitive subject, money. It would be a mistake to think that most financial problems arise solely from a lack of money. In fact, they almost always begin with the fear of losing it. When a person is gripped by this fear, they tend to fidget incessantly, accept terms that are unfavorable, make premature decisions, or sometimes freeze completely and fail to act at all. Money does not respond well to neediness, not because it is sentient, but because neediness corrupts rational thinking. A person mired in desperation thinks in the short term. Their mindset is oriented toward immediate survival rather than long-term strategy. Have you ever noticed that calm, composed individuals often end up earning more than those who panic or obsess? It isn't that they are inherently smarter or harder working, but rather that they possess the invaluable ability to wait patiently, to resist grabbing at the first opportunity, to avoid selling themselves short, and to maintain equanimity even in the face of missed chances. They understand this fundamental truth. If an opportunity is genuine, it will not require a frantic rush or panic-driven decisions. Thus, letting go in the realm of money means emerging from survival mode. When you release the paralyzing fear of losing money, you shift from a mindset preoccupied with mere preservation to one capable of evaluating true profitability and potential with clarity. That subtle but key shift enables you to stop being simply convenient or desperate and start acting with rationality. Moving on to relationships, the paradox of letting go becomes even more pronounced and challenging. The more tightly you cling to someone, the less respect and attraction you tend to elicit. This is not a brutal personal judgment, but a psychological reality. Neediness immediately betrays itself through subtle cues in your voice, body language, pauses in speech, and your emotional reactions. Why does attempts to control another person destroy attraction? Because when you are afraid of losing someone, you begin adjusting excessively, smoothing over disagreements, enduring things that conflict with your true self, and remaining silent even when you ought to speak up. You stop being wholly and authentically you. Yet genuine attraction only emerges toward vitality and authenticity, not mere convenience. When you cling, you fracture your own wholeness. To let go means to return to your true self. When you finally release the need to prove your worth, stop seeking validation, and cease fearing solitude, something paradoxical occurs. You become far more attractive. An inner core, a steady spine emerges within you. You no longer ask for affirmation. Instead, you simply exist with presence and integrity. Finally, we arrive at possibly the most crucial point, understanding the nature of power. True power is not expressed through domination, control, or suppression of others. Instead, authentic power resides in the absence of need. A person is controllable only through the things they fear losing. If there is nothing that can be taken from you, it becomes impossible to manipulate or control you. Why do calm, composed individuals provoke more fear than those who shout or panic? Because they do not reveal their fears, do not respond impulsively, and require no justification or explanation for their actions. Calmness is not passivity. It is a powerful signal that says, "I am unshakable." Letting go is a strategic advantage. By releasing your grip, you cease reacting automatically and begin selecting the timing of your responses deliberately. You act from clarity and composure rather than from frantic panic. This shift bestows a tremendous advantage in virtually all systems you encounter. In financial dealings, negotiations, personal relationships, and life itself. Caution: beware false letting go. I must emphasize here the danger of false letting go. When someone claims, "I don't care," yet beneath the surface they are seething with anxiety, frustration, or resentment. This is not genuine strength, it is repression and denial. Real letting go is quiet, confident, and unassuming. No bravado, no exaggerated displays for effect. Almost everyone hears the phrase, "let go," and mistakenly interprets it as a call to stop trying, to drift aimlessly, or to adopt a fatalistic stance. For many, this misunderstanding results in either remaining weak and passive or rationalizing inaction through philosophical justifications. However, it is critical to understand that letting go is not synonymous with irresponsibility or abandonment of agency. Control and responsibility are fundamentally distinct concepts. Control manifests as persistent tension, fear of mistakes, and frantic attempts to manage what is, by definition, beyond your power. Responsibility, in contrast, is expressed through clear, deliberate action, combined with a willingness to accept any consequences. Control is always oriented toward an uncertain, unknown future. Responsibility exists firmly in the present moment. Why does control destroy focus? When you clutch onto control, you scatter your attention in countless directions, worrying about what others might think, speculating on what could go wrong, imagining what loss might occur, and obsessing over potential failure. Consequently, you are never fully present anywhere or fully engaged with any single task. Letting go, by contrast, restores your focus to exactly where it belongs, in the present moment, and it is within this singular focus that your most powerful and effective actions arise. calmness as a byproduct of clarity. Many mistakenly believe they must first calm themselves before they can act. In reality, the process is reversed. When you act with clarity, calmness naturally follows. Calmness is not a goal in itself, rather it is a symptom indicating that you have ceased deceiving yourself. What does a person who has truly let go look like? Such a person is not in a hurry to justify or explain. They feel no need to prove they are right or defend their choices. They conserve their energy by refusing to expend it on chasing external approval. They speak efficiently, act precisely, and choose deliberately. From the outside, it may appear as if luck or fortune is on their side, but in truth, they are simply no longer obstructing themselves. Why are tense people always exhausted? Tension is an energy drain. You expend effort not on purposeful action, but on internal mental noise and turmoil. Thus, many feel fatigued even when they have achieved little or nothing. Letting go frees this energy, not through mystical means, but through physiological mechanisms. Inner silence is not emptiness. A great deal of fear around letting go stems from a misunderstanding of silence. People often equate the absence of thought, control, and tension with being lost or empty. Yet inner silence is not a void. Instead, it is the spaciousness within which clarity and insight naturally emerge. Why do the best decisions often come in stillness? Have you noticed that your most insightful and effective decisions rarely happen in the heat of mental overdrive, but often arise spontaneously while you are walking, resting, or simply being still? This phenomenon illustrates the essence of letting go. When you stop forcing and pressing for answers, you gain access to much deeper and more integrative levels of thinking. Letting go does not eliminate discipline. It is crucial to clarify this misconception. Letting go does not mean abandoning discipline. Rather, it removes the drama, anxiety, and internal conflict around discipline. You cease waging war against yourself. Instead, you simply do what is necessary with calm and determination, free from self-punishment or excessive pressure. The hard truth. If you find yourself constantly tense, you are not truly trying. You are afraid. And as long as fear governs your decisions, you lack genuine freedom. Letting go is the relinquishment not of all control, but of the illusion that you can control everything. True letting go is always reflected in your behavior rather than your words or thoughts. Don't be fooled by declarations of "I've let go" if these are not matched by changed actions. Here are 5 telltale signs. The absence of haste. When you've really let go, the need to rush dissipates. You no longer push events prematurely, pressure others, or force outcomes. Instead, you move forward at your own deliberate and steady pace. Calm acceptance of any outcome. This is perhaps the most critical indicator. Whether your efforts succeed or fail, you receive the result with equanimity, understanding that both contain valuable information. Your self-esteem no longer rides on the event's outcome. No compulsion to prove yourself. You find yourself no longer needing to justify your position, explain your choices, or seek validation from others. Your energy is preserved for what matters instead of being wasted on convincing or defending. Decisions become simpler. When tense, every decision feels like an ordeal. When you've let go, clarity cuts through the noise, making your choices obvious and straightforward. This is not because the world has changed, but because your internal cacophony has quieted. You say no more easily. The ability to refuse requests or demands calmly without rancor or elaborate justification, is an unmistakable hallmark of someone who has truly relinquished neediness. Why is letting go often confused with apathy? There is a dangerous substitution that must be avoided. Apathy is characterized by a total lack of energy, interest, or desire. Letting go, in contrast, involves releasing tension while retaining vibrant desire and engagement. This distinction is essential. Authentic letting go enhances your zest for life, bringing renewed curiosity, passion, and enjoyment to the process. Why does the world seem to start responding? You might hear people say, "When I finally let go, the world began to answer me." But the truth is, the world itself hasn't changed. You have changed. By becoming less tense, more observant, and more precise in your actions, you begin to notice opportunities you previously missed due to fear. Letting go isn't some external magic. It is an internal evolution, a form of adulthood. An adult recognizes one vital truth. They are responsible for their own actions, but not for the entire universe. They do their part and accept whatever results come without melodrama, without self-deception. Be wary of the biggest trap. Many fall into the trap of attempting to leverage letting go to achieve something, to manipulate results by pretending to release attachment. This paradoxically recreates the original clutching. Genuine letting go cannot be employed as a tool. It either genuinely exists or it doesn't. Letting go is not a transient emotional state, a fleeting insight, or a burst of inspiration. It is a fundamental position, a posture from which a person no longer bargains with life. You perform the maximum effort required of you with precision and responsibility, and then you release everything beyond your control. This is the simple, elegant formula that can replace the wisdom of countless self-help books. You do everything that depends on you diligently, calmly, and without frantic chaos. And you do not clutch or obsess over what lies outside your sphere of influence. Why do most people eventually fall back into control? Because control provides the illusory comfort of safety. Even when painful, familiarity often wins over the fear of the unknown. Letting go is a leap into mature uncertainty, and that leap is terrifying. How to avoid slipping back? There is an easy litmus test. If you find yourself again rushing, rationalizing, obsessing over results, or fearing to say no, you are still holding on. Don't beat yourself up. Simply notice the pattern and gently return to releasing. Letting go and discipline. The most important lesson. Letting go does not remove discipline. Rather, it purifies and strengthens discipline. You are no longer forcing yourself through resistance. Instead, you naturally and willingly perform the actions you have chosen, free from internal conflict. Why do most strong people often appear relaxed? Because they do not expend their precious energy fighting against reality. They accept what is happening, and then they act. Letting go makes you formidable. People control you only by threatening to take away what you value. If you have nothing to cling to, no one can manipulate you through money, relationships, or pressure. This is the essence of true internal freedom, the point of no return. One day, seemingly without warning, you will catch yourself thinking, "I no longer want to live any other way." Not because you have become perfect, but because you have come to see just how much precious energy you wasted before. Final thought. You are not required to control life in order to be strong. You are required to act honestly and to meet the results with calmness. Everything else is simply noise.